What's going on, loves and lovettes? How are you doing? Welcome to the 92nd edition of the Chronicles of Podcast. We are so close to those triple figures, baby. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. How you all doing? Welcome in. Come on, take a seat. Get, chill out, relax, sit down, get comfy. Get some snacks. I was going to say nachos. That's probably what I'd go for, to be honest with you. And welcome into the Chronicles of Joe Matera.
That is absolutely right, baby.
Beautiful. I suppose we better get this started. Make sure you don't spill those nacho juice anywhere. Hit it!
Hi there! You're about to enjoy the Chronicles of Tom and Jeannie.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Mann.
Hi guys, my name's Annabelle Knight and
hello, this is Becky Baldwin.
Hello, I'm Chesney.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Braden from Say We Can Fly.
Hi, my name's Joe Matera. I'm an Australian singer-songwriter, guitarist, music journalist, author, and you're watching the Chronicles of Podcast with Jamie and Tom. Check it out, and hope you enjoy the chat.
I want it now. What? Okay, listen to that. What's next?
This week we bring you the Chronicles of Joe Matera.
I suppose we should bring in that piece, James, to save your voice a little bit.
Oh yeah, we definitely should.
Welcome to the Chronicles of Joe Matera.
Joe Matera is an Australian singer, songwriter, and author, writing for magazines like Guitar Player, Record Collector, Metal Hammer. He's interviewed artists like Kiss and Queen. And as I said, he's an author. He's got his own book, Backstage Pass, The Grit and the Glamour. This is absolutely amazing. But that's just his writing credits. He's also a kick-ass musician with 5 studio albums of some incredible rock and roll. And The Lone Runner, his most recent album, is a complete departure where it's more like ambient ethereal music. This is a very, very talented man and a fantastic guest, a wonderful conversation.
This is a very good interview. I've been very excited to release this one, actually. So ever since we spoke to Joe about a month ago, I think it was now. So we apologise for the delay in getting this one out, Joe. But what a guest, what an interview. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this one because it was conducted at midnight our time.
Yeah.
It was a very, very late one and a very, very early one for him. But, those time zones, motherfuckers, is unbelievable. But Joe's an absolutely wonderful human, really nice guy, and we can't wait for the world to hear his story. Jamie!
Yes, sir.
Any final words at all?
Just a massive thank you to our wonderful guest, Joe. Thank you to reaching out to us and asking to come on. It means the absolute world. It was amazing to sit and talk to you and hear your story. And yeah, everyone, you're going to enjoy this one. And please go check out Joe's music. Go buy a copy of his book. Give this man all the love and support.
Absolutely. Please do. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit and chat to us. And we really appreciate it. We loved it. And like we said, we're very excited for people to hear this one. So ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, interviewing this week, it's Joe Matera.
G'day guys, how are you? Tom and Jamie.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah, how are you?
Very good. Yourself?
I'm very good. Midnight over there in England.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Please bear with us.
Hey, don't worry. I used to do all those sort of times when I used to be in rock bands and sort of stuff. Late mornings at 4 a.m. You come home at 5 a.m. So yeah, I know what it's like.
Oh, your accent's amazing. I love the Australian accent. So if I mimic in any way, I don't mean to. It's because I pick it up off you. So I do apologize now if I start being like, fucking hell, Joe, what's going on here, mate? Fucking hell. It's just like
to be fair,
yeah, that's fine.
I was going to say, as soon as I heard you talk, I could just see the glint in Tom's eyes. Just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Well, I like your accent. So, so you're obviously slightly different parts of England, is that right?
Yeah. I live in the Midlands in Birmingham, and He's an anomaly. He's Scottish, who grew up in England and now lives in Wales.
Oh, you live in Wales? Okay, whereabouts? In Cardiff?
I was in Cardiff, but I'm now in Newport, which is just outside of Cardiff. It's the city next over, so
Okay.
it's all right. I wouldn't recommend it.
And what's Birmingham like? The Birmingham, the city that invented heavy metal.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's a city, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the prestige and the heritage is kind of there anymore this day and age. Kids are too obsessed with their phones and TikTok and whatnot now to actually appreciate, the metal genre, the music, etc., and where it all came from. So, but they just made a bench to Black Sabbath, didn't they, Jamie?
Yes, we've got Black Sabbath Bridge.
Bridge.
It's got it's like a bench with the four heads on there and stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, excellent. I've done quite a few shows in England over the years, but I've never been in that sort of part of England. I've been up north. I've done gigs in Bolton. Yes, Bolton. Yes, I should mention that. Lancaster and London itself, and but I've travelled quite a few places around England. So yes.
Joe, we'll get into it shortly, but thank you so much for reaching out, my friend. Like, we really appreciate you hitting us up. Obviously, to come on the show and whatnot. So it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me on your show.
No, not at all, not at all. So basically, just a quick rundown. I know you've seen bits of it online and whatnot, but Jamie's going to do a nice little introduction, basically to make you feel nice at ease and you feel like lure you into that false sense of security where you feel safe and secure. This is going to be in a really nice place to be. And then we're going to absolutely bombard the living hell out of you with questions. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. No worries. Okay.
Amazing. Also, we're more than happy if you swear everything. It doesn't matter. You're more than welcome to say whatever you like here, providing obviously we don't salute any Nazis. Say we're a fan of Lost Prophets or or anything like that. We'll leave all of that over there. So.
Excellent. Okay, the banner cannot be mentioned.
Yes,
that's them.
Yes, them.
That's them.
I couldn't think of a third. I was trying to think of a third really quick and I couldn't think of anything.
No, not boy bands, right?
Yeah.
Right, to do my little introduction and we can get this underway. Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you another wonderful guest. Today's guest is not only an incredible guitarist and musician who has just released his amazing 5th studio album, The Lone Runner, he's also a journalist writing for publications like Metal Hammer and Classic Rock, talking to artists like Queen, Foo Fighters, and a band I'm excited to hear about, Kiss. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from 9 hours in the future, from the world down under, this week we bring you the Chronicles of Joe Matera.
Thank you so much, guys. Yes, it's a pleasure to be there. I'm coming all the way from the future.
All the way from the future. You need to send us the lottery numbers, Joe.
That's right. Yes, I'll tell you what. I'll take that. They're just coming up now.
Did I pronounce your surname correctly? I forgot to double check before we started going.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely wonderful. Joe, I suppose we should start off with the hard hitting shit straight away, which was how was your pandemic season? I know it's kind of it's disappearing a bit now, but how have the last few years been for you?
Look, the pandemic pretty much screwed my touring schedule and my shows because, like everybody else, all the touring had stopped. Up to that point, before the pandemic, I was coming to Europe once a year, doing tours all around Europe and Scandinavia, and I was planning to come back in 2020, but that put a stop to it. So basically, with no gigs and no sort of playing opportunities, I just fell back into my music journalism and just went back to writing for magazines full time, which I used to do for back in the 2000s. And so now I've sort of incorporated both my music journalism and my playing and recording career together. So now I've got sort of two outlets again.
Yeah, because Australia kind of went, nobody's allowed in and nobody's allowed out. Nothing is happening. This is it now. This is Australia. Whoever's here, you live here forever.
That's right, absolutely. And look, the beauty of what I did was basically because I already had been overseas and connected with other musicians, already worked with them. It allowed me to collaborate more with those musicians just via the internet. Which there's I did quite a few projects. I mean, over the pandemic period, I ended up writing my first book, which gave me time to finally do that. I put together another album. The Lone Runner actually came together during that period, which was a bit of an experiment for me. So I had so many projects, and now I'm even busier than ever before. So hopefully, as we move forward, I will be coming back to Europe. But at the moment, sort of it's like everything else around the world. It's pretty expensive to tour, and it's pretty chaotic in the sense you could be on tour next minute, you could be stuck somewhere. So until things sort of settle down a bit, it's just going to be just play by ear. But I'm keeping busy. I've still got heaps of projects that I'm working on, and more things coming out soon.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. Joe, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it all, though, take us back to the days of young Master Matera. What did you want to be when you were a young man? Was it always music for you, or was it like train driver? I don't know.
Oh, no, definitely no. My parents wish I was a train driver, but no, I always wanted to be a musician, first and foremost, I was always very good at writing. I mean, that's one of the subjects I did do really well in at school. Everything else I sort of didn't do too well, but I didn't care because music was the only thing that was I wanted to do. But having said that, it's not something that I sort of went out and say, look, I'm going to just focus on this. I mean, like everything else, I went out, just got a normal day job, and got married, that sort of stuff for the first time. And it just eventually I just sort of just kept doing what I do, and I just fell into sort of opportunities that arose, and then the internet happened. And once the internet happened back in the early 90s, I was on it pretty quickly, and I just started sort of connecting and with some artists, and just took it from there. So it sort of fell into place, but it's always been there. I mean, it's not something I had a plan like, okay, at the age of this, say 21, I'm going to do this, because I don't think anybody can do that. I mean, I've read bios where they said, I know what I wanted to do, and I was going to do it. Well, life throws you all sorts of things. You just go with it. It just, when you're on the right path, eventually it will open up for you. So, and you got it's a hard slog. It's not something that just sort of came pretty easy. I've worked my butt off in order to get where I am. So, many people say, is it a pretty lucrative business? And I say no, because I do it because it's a lifestyle. It's, I do it for the music. It's not for the money. I say to people, if you want to go into music to make money, I suggest you don't. Just become a lawyer, because you can make much more money from becoming a lawyer.
Sorry, Jamie.
I was going to say, it's a thing you find with a lot of musicians. They say there ain't a lot of money in doing this. We do it because we love it. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, even the big touring bands, I mean, look, it's the percentage of those sort of bands like, I say Def Leppard, those Kiss. I mean, that's a very small percentage you can make money out of that. But that's because they've been around for a long time, and the money that goes into production. I mean, it's not cheap to put on a tour. It costs a lot of money. So, and I think the big thing is, songwriting is the core to earning on, because basically if you write a song, each time it gets played, each time it gets aired, you're making money from it. And that's one thing that's guaranteed. But you got to really be a big artist. I mean, Ed Sheeran's probably one of the rare artists who can really sort of say he's got a hell of a lot of money. But again, he's got an entourage of a lot of people, which means there's a lot of wages being paid out. So it's a business. The musician's sort of just the one person. Then there's all these other people around it, that you need for that machine to keep going.
That, I think Kiss basically just went, can we put our faces on absolutely everything so we can make as much money as possible? Because, guys, there's no money there. Let's just make lighters and skateboards and lighting and God knows what else. Am I facing it? Put it on there.
Yeah, look, Kiss has always been a commercial venture. I mean, even Gene Simmons said to me many years ago when I spoke to him, it was all about the business for them. I mean, he even admitted they're not the greatest musicians on the planet. And he even admitted that a lot of those classic Kiss albums don't even have the members playing on it, So it's basically a purely business thing. But, good luck to him. I mean, he always said, I think it was an interview he did once where he said he hoped to start a religion called Kisstanity, rather than Christianity. So, I mean, he's doing a great job with it.
It's the most Gene Simmons quote I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it's a really old interview he did, and I thought that was pretty ironic because the way they went about with their merchandise, it is. I mean, it's a pretty much they're everywhere. I mean, who doesn't know Kiss and that famous logo? As soon as you see that logo, it's Kiss.
Absolutely. And then there's idiots like me that buy it, so it clearly works.
And myself too.
So, it was just going back to your school days very quickly. I always find it weird that teachers are literally like, "What do you want to do yourself? You're 16 now, or whatever." I don't know how it works in Australia, but it's like, you're 16 now, you should know what you want to do. What do you mean you don't know? You know, go and do your A-levels, go to university, go study this, go study that. It's like, well, hang on a second, because I'm 35 and I still haven't got a fucking clue what I want to do in my life. So
that's true, you know. And look, you don't. I mean, anyone who says at the age of 15 they know what they're going to do is bullshit, because basically you don't know. You're still trying to find who you are. I mean, it takes a long time. I mean, I'm, you know, at my age now, I'm finding comfortable in my own skin and know who I am and what I want to do. But, you know, if I go back even, you know, half my age, I still didn't know what I want to do. I just sort of just went along and just, you know, hopefully things worked out. And so that is correct. Look, at school, look, I think school is yeah, I mean, back in my day, it was, you know, I remember telling my careers teacher saying I want to become a musician, and he said to me, "Oh, nah, you know, it doesn't, find yourself a better job," you know. I mean, one of the teachers I was in, one of the classrooms said to me, "I've never achieved anything in my life because all I cared about was music." And I love to go back now because I love to say, well, you know, I have achieved all these things with believing in what I wanted to do. So I think teachers don't give, you know, enough sort of encouragement just for students to just be who they are, not try and push their own agenda or values, because everybody's different, you know. Like, you know, who would have thought heavy metal become this respected genre that everybody loves? I mean, you know, when it started, it was like, oh, heavy metal, what is this, you know? So everything has got a benefit to it, you know. You just got to allow people to be who they are.
Absolutely. You can guarantee these people are like, musician, that's not a real job. And then they go get in their car, put the radio on and really enjoy a song. It's like, who do you think made that?
Yeah, that's right. You know, isn't it? I find it real ironic that, you know, you have sports stars who just want to be rock stars. Everybody wants to be a rock star. I mean, even the way they talk at the news, they're saying, "Oh, you know, rock star welcome," you know, like to a politician. I mean, it shows you that, you know, here they are, used to say years ago, "Oh, music's not a real job." It is a real job. My music job is basically 24/7 for me. It's like, that's what I do. It's a lifestyle. It's a job. It's not something that's a hobby for me. It's actually a real serious thing. But I enjoy what I do, and the joy that it gives to people is what is the most satisfaction of my whole work. You know, like just reading an article. If people get something from my article and it brings a smile on their face, they've learned something, I'm happy with it. If my music gives them a bit of, you know, something to forget about their worries for, you know, a time, fantastic. I mean, that's the greatest satisfaction, more than, say, monetary reward.
So I know you started playing guitar from a very young age, but where did that love of music come from to make you even want to pick up that guitar in the first place?
I always love listening to music. I mean, excuse me. The Beach Boys, my first album was when I age 4. I got my parents to buy me the Beach Boys Pet Sounds album, which is a classic album, and I just loved the sounds on it, and that just got me in love with the with music, you know. And then as for guitar, there was a show in Australia called Countdown, which is very much like Top of the Pops in the UK, and I used to sit that religiously and just watch it, and, you know, see all these rock stars on there coming out with their guitars, you know, and all the girls screaming. I go, wow, you know, I want to play guitar. And I actually, and the funny thing is, I actually started on bass guitar. So I learned to play bass for about 6 months, and I realized it's pretty boring that, you know, you're just playing these notes and you're a bit of a backup. I wanted to be much more of the person up front playing all these wonderful leads. So I changed to guitar, and I'm self-taught, totally self-taught guitar. I listened to a lot of records growing up, and by ear learned how to play things. And I learned how to play guitar that way. So my music tastes are very varied. I'll listen to anything from jazz to metal to classical to you name it, because I think it's important to appreciate all styles of music and not be a snob or purist and say, oh, you know, that style of music. Because really, I mean, you'll be surprised how many metal guys actually love the opposite styles of music. For example, I don't know if you know, but Brian Johnson tried to write a musical, you know, like a stage musical, as in classical ballet. So people will go, what? Brian Johnson, the lead singer of AC/DC? I go, yeah. I mean, Angus Young is a painter. He paints just quietly in his so there's so many different sort of sides to an artist that people may not think. They just think it's all about heavy metal all the time. You know, it's not. You can't listen to that style of music non-stop because it'll drive you mad. You got to have sort of a balance to it. So
That's like us growing up when we were growing, obviously, when like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were a thing, and people secretly, we're like, oh my god, that shit's on, but deep down you're like, oh my god, I actually love it. Like, just really need a bit of NSYNC right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Look, like the boy band stuff, really seriously. I mean, they have some great songs. I mean, again, it's the people who write those songs. I mean, they do catch you. I mean, you can't stop catching yourself tapping along to it. So, and that is a specific market, boy bands. I mean, it's aimed at sort of teenage girls, whatever. So, and it works. I mean, Kiss, you could say, was a boy band because basically they aimed at the teenage boys and girls, they did the job. So, Sex Pistols, I mean, when you listen to Sex Pistols, you can't tell me that that's an actual real punk band. I mean, they got the punk energy, but when you listen to the album, that's a purely polished album that was so catchy that, I mean, you can sing those riffs now, So there's a lot of influences, and it's interesting because Johnny Rotten recently mentioned how much the Sex Pistols were listening to ABBA. Now, can you imagine if that came out back in the 70s and said they were listening to ABBA? Their street cred would have gone out the window. But now everyone claims ABBA's a great band and great influence. Now, go figure.
That's mental.
Yeah.
You find it though, like you listen to a lot of like the hardcore extreme metal stuff, you're hearing strings in the back of there, you're hearing organ sound, you're hearing like this classical music sound. So you're like, see, you're not just listening to people scream all day, you're listening to some classical music, and there's the influence coming through right there.
Absolutely. And you put a metal band with, say, a classical band, a classical orchestra, it's heavy, man. It's much more heavy than an actual heavy metal band, like it. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, Mozart was the rock star of his time. I mean, he was a wild, classical sort of musician who, today you would say, bloody hell, he's a cool rock star.
Who influenced you, Joe?
Oh, there's a lot of influence on me, but basically, look, my first band, I learned a lot of guitar stuff was the Shadows. I mean, the Shadows influenced every nearly British guitar player on the planet, from that generation. So, but Queen, AC/DC, Kiss, just even Blondie. I mean, I just listen to everything. So I can't really pinpoint one sort of band or artist that influenced me because I get influences from everything. But they're the sort of bands I grew up with, the classic rock era of the 70s. I mean, that's my period of reference frame for all my music, really.
Okay. What I love about your story is there's so many little side adventures that you go on. It's like a video game. It's like journalism that we'll talk about in a bit. You play guitar. You did musical theatre performing in Les Mis. And you were even a guitar teacher at one point. So for someone who's self-taught, how did you learn, like, actually to read and write music as well in order to teach it?
I did. I put myself through. I did 4 years of music theory, and I did that to understand music. But seriously, music theory, it's good to know, but I never actually used it in my lessons because all my lessons, the students, all they wanted to learn was like Nirvana and Metallica. So, when I was doing guitar lessons, basically, full time during the 90s. The biggest request I ever had was Metallica, Nirvana, Guns N' Roses, and Green Day. They were the bands everybody wanted to learn guitar, and I basically was kept in the job by just teaching those songs. I mean, and they're great. I mean, got kids just want to say, "Hey, can you show me how to play Enter Sandman?" I mean, yeah, sure, So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up in the era where we had vinyl records, and you learn to play by ear, and that develops your true musicianship because basically you're learning to play by ear. I mean, nowadays tablature, I mean, that's all good. I mean, it helps you to sort of learn to play quicker. But a lot of students I find who go down that route only don't even know when they're playing something wrong because it's basically visual. You got to learn to play by ear. You got to be able. I say to them, if I throw you into a band with musicians you've never played before, can you just go off and play something? Most of them go, no, I can't do that. How do you do that? And I go, well, that's where knowing to play by ear is very, very important because years I've played in bands or musicians I've never met to that night I've been on stage, and I just say to them, what key? And off we go, and we play, and we just jam. And I've had people come up to me and say, oh, you guys have been playing for years, and I go, no, I only met 5 minutes ago. So that's I mean, that's a generation I grew up with. I mean, most of those guitar players can do that. I mean, I'm not saying there's guitar players or musicians who can't do that now, but all I'm saying is there's a heavy emphasis on internet sort of learning. I mean, there is some great YouTube videos. Don't get me wrong, absolutely fantastic, and I think more power to them. I just think students need to sort of really be aware that how important the ear is, and just to make mistakes, because from your mistakes you'll learn from it. I mean, don't be so perfect. Just go for it.
I love that. I love that. So saying that, you saying how the internet's advanced and stuff like that, have you found yourself learning new techniques yourself as technology's like progressed?
I keep. I'm abreast of all the things that are happening now in the guitar world, and I'm not really much of that sort of technical player, as in like a Steve Vai player. I'm much more about the melody. I'm much more about, I'll just pick up my guitar. If I hear something in my head, I'll just play it, or if I like a song, I'll work it out. It doesn't take me long to work out a song. I'm pretty I'm pretty good at sort of saying, if I hear a song once or twice, I'll just basically work it out and I can play it. I mean, obviously the lead's going to take a bit longer, but I'm much more about my own stuff now. I mean, I've been for years. I've learned all these sort of songs, and played Metallica and all those sort of but it's just been stuff that I enjoy to play. Now it's like I want to concentrate on playing my own music.
Have you ever had moments where you've been in a situation, say, like, I don't know, going to sleep or in the shower, and you've had a moment where you just thought of a tune in your head and you go, shit, I need to write that down, or voice note it or whatever, like, oh my God, where's my phone? Quick before I forget.
Yeah, absolutely. That happens to me all the time. I'll be out walking or something, and an idea comes to me. So I've got a phone with me always, and I'll just I'll hum something. So a lot of my songs come that way. A lot of them do come when I'm just noodling around on the guitar. I'll hear something, go, this sounds really good. Quickly pull out my phone and put down the idea, and then later on I'll record demos. I'm always recording demos in my studio. I mean, I'm very good at coming up with music quickly. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of riffs lying around that can be used for songs, but lyrics is a whole different ball game. Lyrics can take a long time. They can take months sometimes. I mean, I've only really been lucky in writing a complete song, words, music, in 15 minutes. And that was my very first vocal track, Fallen Angel, which came out about 12 years ago, and which is the song that broke me in Europe. And but that's one of those sort of rare moments where you wish you had a formula you could do that again. But most of the times, it does take many months to write lyrics, because it's an important part of the song. But music wise, I mean, you could say to me, come up with something, and I'll just hear a riff and I'll do it.
Crazy.
Why is it you think that it takes you so long in lyrics? Is it just the ideas just don't come to you, or is there something?
Because it's much more like a story. It's like writing. I mean, when I'm writing a story, you're obviously thinking about it, and you write a story, and then you rewrite, and then you rewrite. I mean, like with my book, I rewrote that quite a few times in order to get to the polished stage. So, and you always come up with ideas with lyrics, and you want to make the story make sense. You want to condense it, because you could write a novel and it won't be suitable for a song, because a song got to have basically maybe 3 verses and a chorus, and you got to say everything you need to say in that part. So it's a lot of times you might have a full page of lyrics, but then you got to cut it all down to make it into a condensed story. So it takes a lot more working with it. And like I said, Fallen Angel was just sort of one of those things. I was sitting on my bed actually with a guitar, and the chords came to me in about 5 minutes, and then the lyrics just poured out of me, a little story that I had. And and I wish I could do that all the time, but it doesn't work that way.
Have you ever had any lyrics personal at all, though, or story based?
All my lyrics are basically observation of life, real life. Yes, and some of them are very personal. Fallen Angel is actually part fact, part fiction. Part fact in the sense the story of a lady of the night and what happened to her is sort of I knew that person, but I turned it into a story of observation of celebrity culture, where people get lost in this fame and fortune and end up in a bad state, and how the pursuit, as we said at the start of the interview, of money or fame isn't really what it's about. It's about doing it for the passion of music, or passion of writing, or passion for whatever you do. So that's I mean, a lot of my songs are based on my own personal observations. and then I've got one song called Louder Than Words, which is basically got three different meanings, which each person can find something from it. If you watch a video, you'll get one meaning. If you listen to the song lyrics itself, you'll get another meaning, and then there's another deeper meaning behind it. But I don't like to reveal that because as songwriters, you want people to make up their own interpretations and then see what they get it from. But most of my music is very uplifting and positive.
I love that. And great song. I really enjoyed Louder Than Words.
Oh, thank you.
So, I was reading early in your career, you decided to move to Melbourne to focus, put all your energy into your music career. What was it that made you decide to actually move to Melbourne? What was it in Melbourne that you thought could help?
Well, that's where all the music scene is, and that's where the record companies were. So I had to go there and sort of, in order to do my journalism, because I could get calls like, can you be here in 30 minutes to interview, say, a band that's in town, and I have to do that because when I was living in the country, it was like 2 hours away, so there's no way I could do that. So I lived in Melbourne, for about 6 years, and now I live outside of Melbourne, so it doesn't worry me anymore. I mean, nowadays also post-pandemic, a lot of artists are doing stuff via Zoom, which is like we're doing today. So, but yeah, look, now that you have to be there. There's a point in your career where if you're going to go serious about it, you have to move to the place you have to go. I mean, look in America. I mean, they go to LA in order to try and make it, or they go to New York. You go to London, for example, in England. So you can't just stay in your hometown. You got to. There comes a time where you got to make a decision of, look, if I'm going to do this full time, I want to, or try and make it big, I have to go and stay there, and you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's funny when you said that. I was thinking, how many songs are out there about a girl moving to LA with dreams of becoming an actress? It's such a trope.
Oh, absolutely. Look, yeah, and that is it's a universal theme. I mean, it's interesting because Fallen Angel. There's a song by Poison called Fallen Angel, which is sort of a girl who goes off to Hollywood and that sort of stuff. So and I love Poison now, but the thing about Fallen Angel, my song is I'm a huge Bryan Adams fan, and I love the riff to Run to You. So if you listen to Run to You, I took that riff, I reversed it, I changed the notes around, I added my own little bit to it, and I wrote my riff to it. And it's completely like when you hear it, it doesn't sound nothing like Bryan Adams, but you can hear that influence. And I was listening to Hysteria at the same time by Def Leppard, and it's got that sort of feel to it too. So there's all these influences that came to me, what I was listening to at the time. But then, you listen to a song and it's totally me. I mean, it's got a very much classic 80s vibe to it. And it's got my, doing my guitar solo and that sort of stuff. So, I wear my influences on my sleeve. I'm not afraid to sort of, show them to the world, really.
I love it. I love that though, because so many musicians are like, no, this is me. Everything is me. And you go around and no, this person inspired me. This is my,
that's right.
I don't want to say tribute, but like I'm wearing on my sleeve, my fandom on my sleeve. I love that. It's amazing.
That's right. Look, there's nothing, I mean, really, seriously, what originality is about putting your own take on something to make it your own. And, you can't reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already invented, right? And in music, there's only 7 notes. I mean, as Ed Sheeran's recently showed in his court case, you can take 4 chords and you can make thousands of songs out of those 4 chords, and they all sound, very much similar. So there's a fine line between, copyright stuff. You've got to be very aware of that. Obviously, you can't just copy stuff. That's not right. But to be influenced by something I think it's proud. I mean, I'm not going to walk around saying, oh, look at me, I've invented this piece of music that's totally different, because it's not. I mean, you can find a connection to something that came before, I mean, really, everything that's come out of rock and roll, you can go back to the 50s, Chuck Berry, or, it dates back to, I mean, even the Beatles. I mean, they really made a lot of stuff. They were the most influential band of all time because they really started the whole songwriting, your own stuff, and took it to areas where now we all look to that sort of stuff and go, wow, look what they did. But we're just sort of building on top of something that was already built there, but making it our own.
Absolutely. It made me laugh, that Ed Sheeran case, because like you said, there's 4 chords. Like, you can only, like, Status Quo made a career of using the same ones over and over again. It's going to happen. People are going to overlap.
That's right. Yeah, they made a career out of using 3 chords, and that works. So that's right. And like there's a John Cougar is a classic example. I mean, he used 3 chords. He used the same song and rewrote it with different lyrics. I mean, Jack and Diane, if you listen to that, as well as ROCK USA and Small Town, it's the same chord progression, you know. So very clever. I mean, you got to give it to him. It's very clever and very original in the way he approached it. So it's all got to do with how you approach something and how you make it your own, you know. So I don't know if this is the right word, but I hate pompous artists who go around saying, I've invented this new piece of music and no one's ever heard before. And I'm going, well, bullshit, because basically it's been done before, but you've just put your own touch to it.
Absolutely. It's exactly.
Nailed it on the head, my friend.
You probably get a lot of comments now by people saying, no, what is he talking about?
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, my friend. That's all I was going to say.
That's right. Yes.
You've been part of a few bands as well. You were part of Double Vision and Geisha, but obviously you've ended up going on your own. Like, do you prefer playing solo, or was it just some things with the bands that just didn't work out, or what actually was going on there?
Look, with the bands, I mean, this is another thing about bands. Bands is like being married, right? So there's always dramas, right? So with my bands, it was always about, especially Double Vision. I did all the hiring, all the firing, all the managing. I used to pay the guys really well. But in the end, it just, band members think they want one thing, but they don't understand the vision. It was always my band. It was always my vision. And anybody who says that a band is democratic, I'm going to tell you right now, are talking a load of bullshit. Because basically, I believe in what was it, John Bon Jovi? I think he said. Don't quote me on this, but someone said that it's a democratic dictatorship, and that's basically what it is. If you look at every band that's successful, there is always one or two musicians who are the leaders of the band, and the reason why they're still around is because of that. Let's look at the Rolling Stones. Jagger and Richards, right? Without those two, that band would have gone anywhere, right? Look at Kiss. Who are the main guys who keep driving Kiss? Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, right? Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, all right? So if you don't have a guy who drives a band and with the vision, no matter what you do, it's going to fall by the wayside. So it's always that strong visionary, and it's not easy to have that strong vision, because you're going to come across members who think that they know better than you or want to take you in a different direction when you know where to go. So it's a sort of obviously got to give and take. I mean, I've always been about, allowing people to bring, their input, but at the end of the day, you make the decision. So being a solo artist is actually a lot harder, because everything falls on your shoulders. So you make the choices. If something doesn't work out, you got to live with it. If it works out, you get the credit for it. So, but again, being a solo artist doesn't mean that I'm the guy playing all instruments, because you still need other musicians. But the group of musicians I work with now in Sweden, they are absolutely fantastic guys. I really love the guys. They are great musicians who listen to my vision. They bring in their own little sort of touch to it, and works really well, and I love that. And I think that's what makes a healthy sort of a band format, you can say.
I love that. So you're absolutely right. Every single band you think of, they've got a leader. They've got that person that people recognise as the front person. That's right. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, look at Van Halen. We've had Van Halen. I mean, it's Eddie and Alex, really. But they are the brothers. I mean, David Lee Roth. Yes, he was the face of the band, but really, I mean, Eddie was the guy that kept it. Yeah.
I mean, Metallica, though, you've got Lars, Kirk, and James. So, I mean,
That's
I
right,
guess obviously, I don't know. I can't remember the bassist's name. I feel really bad, but okay,
Robert.
Thank you. But obviously, it's always been like James, Kirk, and Lars, isn't it? It's always been those three. So I guess they're more of a collective than. Unless, would you say James is the leader, though?
You know what? Behind that band, I can tell you right now, it's Lars. It's Lars who is really the guy behind it.
Really?
I mean, yes, don't get me wrong. James is very much part of it with Lars, but you just look back in the history of Metallica. I mean, it's Lars's vision was the one who wanted to put the band together, And but yes, look, they are very much collective. I mean, you look at Robert. Even though he's been part of Metallica now for 20 years, you still look at Metallica as being James, Kirk, and Lars, because that's how strong personalities they are. But if you stand aside from being a guitar player, it's always going to be Lars and James who come across. But then you go back even further, and it's like, yeah, Lars is the guy who's really behind this, you know. But not to take away anything from what James's contribution is, because he's very much part of it. But yeah, if you got to really look deeper and go, nah, Lars is more about the business side of things. You can tell.
Absolutely. I love that. So 2010, I believe it was, you decided to release your first solo material.
Yeah, that's right.
What made you decide it was time? It's time to let's record something. Let's put my own music out there into the world.
I got sick of playing with idiots in bands, really. And I thought, I've been doing all this. I'll just go up by myself, stuff this, and just do it myself. So that's what I did. I just basically decided it was time to sort of go on my own and leave the dramas behind. And I tell you, it's been such a better life to do that rather than dealing with, which I could write a whole book about that sort of stuff. But yeah.
I love that. It's like, why did I release my music? Because I do not want to work with people anymore. Leave me alone. All right.
Oh, yeah.
So for those that are just thinking, for the people who might be listening to this that aren't aware of your music, how would you describe it? How is your best way to describe your music?
It's pretty much pop rock, with elements of very much classic rock influences. It depends, because if you're talking about my Lone Runner album, it's totally nothing like it. It's an experimental electronica instrumental ambient album, which is much more in the style of Brian Eno, Massive Attack, and Vangelis. While my normal sort of singer songwriter stuff is much more in the in the band form. Electric stuff is very much classic rock, but in the acoustic vein, it's very much Neil Young meets Cat Stevens sort of stuff with a touch of Tom Petty.
That's a great way to describe it. I love that.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Slave to the Fingers, I really, really enjoyed. I had it on this evening. So no, not at all. But just quickly, I love asking musicians this question. Music videos, Joe, love them or hate them? As in the production, the making of them, the setting them up, that sort of thing, rather than the finished article.
I'm very much old school. I love the videos where they used to have bands play live. I think videos have become sort of like a movie thing now, where a lot of times you'll watch a video and it's got nothing to do with what the song's about. You and the problem with that is you tend to sort of, once you see a video and then you listen to the song, you're always going to have that image of that video in when you hear the song, rather than listening to the song and get your own interpretation. And so I think there's a fine line with how they make videos nowadays, because a lot of them you look at and go, what the hell are they talking about? So I'm very much old school. I love the old clips of bands sort of miming to whatever, or sort of images and that sort of stuff. So but the video medium has since MTV really era has become a very strong point in selling records. Now I think Spotify's even changed the ball game, because now back in the day, I remember you would buy a vinyl, you sit down, you pour yourself a drink, listen to the vinyl, pick up the album, read the notes, read the lyrics, and it was an experience. Nowadays, you just go to Spotify, listen to something, you go, yeah, next one, and there's no more in the context of a whole album, which is a shame, because there's some great albums out there that people should listen to. So yeah, look, it's ever changing. I think the way we consume music, and videos are very much still part of that.
Yeah, it's very much a case of I want it now. What? Okay, listen to that. What's next? It's like I say with music videos. I literally used to record Kerrang or Scuzz or whatever was on over here. I'd record it, literally whole VHS the whole way through. I'd leave it record all night, and I'd sit in my room every day after school. I'd put it on and just let it play over and over again. I used to love, for hours I'd lie there. It was great. But obviously, music videos now aren't so prominent. It's like lyric-made videos, or people can't be asked to actually do any.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. And I used to do the same thing too. I used to record stuff and just watch it on video over and over again. And So I agree with you. Again, that was fantastic to do that.
Yeah.
So obviously, we said earlier how you've worked with some incredible musicians over your career, but around the same time of Creature of Habit coming out, you ended up touring as a guitarist for Steve Harley.
Steve Harley came out to Australia. Yes, he came out to Australia, and I did he was on a promo tour, so we did radio sessions together. We did some other media sort of concerts together. So it was fantastic. Absolutely. I had interviewed Steve about in the early 2000s, and we got along really well together. So we kept in touch. And when he said he's coming out to Australia, he said he knew about my guitar playing because I had already sent him music, and he said, I really love your guitar playing. How would you like to be my guitar player on tour? And I go, wow, that'd be great. Yeah. So I sat down and I learned that guitar solo to make me smile, and I think I spent 3 months learning that note by note perfectly. And basically my audition was the first time I actually met Steve was when he came out, when he landed in Australia. He was in his hotel room. He says, come and see me this afternoon. We'll meet for the first time and sit down, bring a guitar and play me a song. So I went to his hotel room, sat me down, and he goes, okay, so play me Make Me Smile, the guitar solo. And I'm going, oh, wow, talk about this. So I played it. There's a sort of a bit of a pause, and he goes, fantastic, you've got the job. That is absolutely superb, spot on. And he said to me later that out of all the guitar players he's ever worked with, only 4 guitar players ever played the guitar solo correctly. And he said I was one of them. And that was like, wow, because a lot of times you see the guitar solo being played and it's not necessarily correct, it's the phrasing. And it's not a really easy guitar solo. It's a really difficult guitar solo. There's a great feel to it. So, I was just really wrapped because I was nervous as hell. I'm thinking, if I stuff this up, I'm not going to get the job. But it worked. So, it paid off. And ever since then, so I played with him for it was about 2-week tour. And when I come to London, I always sort of catch up with him and have dinner with him, and we just keep in touch. So absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. So basically he got off the plane and gave you a phone call and said, come up and see me, make me smile.
That's correct. Hey, I love that. That is fantastic.
I'm so sorry. I can't tell if Tom looks proud or embarrassed.
Sometimes I wonder why I do this show with you.
Love it. I love it. That's great.
So we've mentioned the journalism. Like, where did that come into it in your career? What made you want to step into the world of writing about music?
I just loved. I grew up in the era of Cream and what was those, mate? Hot Hit Parader and circus magazines. Early days of Rolling Stone, and in Australia we had like Juke magazine and New Musical Express. The old school New Musical, not the one today. And always just loved writing. I just started getting some stuff sort of out there, and then I got a break with a band in Australia that sort of got published, and that just sort of encouraged me. I thought, I love doing this, and then eventually I just worked my way up, until record companies started calling me and say, interview this band, and it's been there in the right time at the right place. I mean, Nickelback was my very first. I was the first guy to interview Nickelback in Australia, and I spent 3 days with them, and my interview got published, and then 6 months later they were massive, and that's what I mean. It being at the right time. John Mayall's another one. When I met him and interviewed him, no one knew who he was. He was just like, who is this guy? And eventually it got published. I think it was the very first interview with John Mayer published in a UK magazine. And then about 6 months later, again, he was big. And then John kept asking for me every time he came out to Australia to do interviews because he knew we loved talking about guitars. And and then my name just got out there, and that's how it all sort of went for me.
That's awesome. Did your connections to the music industry through your playing and bands and stuff like that, did that help in getting your name out there in journalism, or was it?
No, because when I started doing the playing full time, I actually quit journalism because I wanted to do my music and be taken for my music seriously for who I am, not because of what I did. So no, that's why there's sort of nothing really between 2012 to about 2000, since the pandemic, because basically I was just concentrating on recording. I got a record deal and touring really, but now because I've earned my my reputation and my respect from my music as well as my journalism, I can incorporate them together. So they sort of come together now, and I can go off in both worlds easily now. But it was very important for me that I was because at the end of the day, none of those the media outlets I was working for at that time, none of them actually really supported what I did. Like when I went out and said, look, I've got a new record out, can you give it a bit of a plug? None of them said yes to it, because basically I was no longer working for them. So now it's different because basically I've earned that sort of, I had to work my way up to sort of gain that respect. But now it's fine because they see it's two different worlds for me. And a lot of writers are like that. I mean, there's writers now who are musicians, authors, and radio broadcasters. I mean, it's become a different ball game now where you're not just one thing. I mean, look at Joe Elliott. He had is it Planet Rock? He's got a radio show, So, look, musicians have now become sort of, there's different avenues they can go down to now.
Yeah, you find quite a few, like I think Alice Cooper and Nikki Sixx, they've all had radio shows and stuff like that as well.
That's right, yeah. And, sort of, they all sort of give themselves a bit of a plug, which is nothing wrong with it. I mean, it is your own show, so, but it is a different ballgame now. And I think social media, and because the way the world's going, it's opened up those sort of avenues now where, if I had a show on, say, a podcast, I will plug something of mine. There's nothing wrong with that, But you go back 20 years, it wasn't really on because this stuff didn't really exist, So you had to sort of keep it separate. But now it doesn't matter.
When you offered to interview Foo Fighters and Queen and Kiss, and it must just be really, you want me to speak to Metallica? That must have been mind blowing.
Look, in the early days, it was sort of a bit of a starstruck thing, but then you get used to it because I always walk in as being like one of the band, and that's the thing. That's one thing that sort of what's the word for it? Distinguish me from other writers because I'm a musician. I'm a guitarist. I speak their language. I know their mindset. So I walk in there as I'm one of the band members, and they open up to me, and they know they can talk to me on that level. So I can get stuff out of the guys differently than, say, a normal journalist, right? Who will just sort of ask the basic questions or, whatever they want, or tabloid crap, So, meeting Metallica was just, I mean, it was like, well, I'm talking to, Metallica, James and Kirk, but at the same time, I was like, these just my peers. I grew up with these guys, and I'm a musician. So, it is. Look, it is. You got to sort of keep it on the professional level, but I'm very particular about facts and respecting one another at the same level type thing. I mean, I really hate lazy journalists. I mean, there's nothing worse than journalists who just ask stupid questions, like, for example, how did Metallica get their name? Now, that's something that can take you 2 minutes to look up on the internet anyway. And not only that, put yourself into, say, James Hetfield's place. If he's been asked that so many times, one day he's going to come where he's going to go, I'm walking out of this interview, I'm not doing this, And then what happens then is that journalist will write a story saying James Hetfield was this arrogant, walked out the interview. And people think, oh, look at James, look what's happened. They don't understand there's a different side. That didn't happen because of James, happened because the journalist was quite lazy, So you got to be aware of that sort of stuff and just respect it.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've interviewed bands for a volunteer thing that we do. I do ask that question. I'm always intrigued. I mean, I know you could always look it up and whatnot, but some bands I'm always intrigued as to why, because obviously coming with a band name is so difficult, especially this day and age now where everyone's got the internet and everyone's got a platform to do whatever they want on. So finding a name for something now is insanely difficult, but I'm always intrigued by what they thought of before. That's more why I asked that question rather than, why did you pick that snare drum, Lars, on St. Anger? Why'd you pick that snare drum?
I bet he's been asked that so many times.
That's right. Yeah.
So when it comes to interviewing bands, do, say, Metal Hammer, for example, turn around and go, right, we want you to go talk to, I'm just going to say Metallica because we were just talking about them. Do they say, like, we want you to talk about this, this, and this, or do they just go, go interview him, and then you just come up with whatever?
No, mostly you sort of, for example, if you get an access to a band and you say, I've got access to, say, Metallica, you want a story? And they go, yeah, go do a story. So you got to get a signed first a story. You can't just sort of go out and do it. You let your editors know. And but no, most of the time, look, 99% of the time, you got to do the research and the questions and yourself. And hopefully by writing a good story, the editor likes it and runs it. Because if it's a bad story, they're not going to run it. That's the thing, unless it's something really, major that's so different. But yeah, you got to just realize what do the readers want. That's the thing. Always think about what would you like to read in the magazine. Do you want to read about say, James's new guitar? Or do you want to read about James' new hot rod? So you think about what do the readers want to read this time, and you go through all the different interviews they've done, and you make sure that and you repeat something that's been done before, because nothing worse than doing an interview and go, hang on, this is an interview sort of like I read like 10 years ago. So you got to make sure it's something that's relevant, new, fresh, and different. So the reader can go, wow, that was really cool.
I like that. I like that. Obviously, we're doing what we do. I'm just sitting there like, taking notes for this. Cheers, James. Great. I do want to point out as well, obviously, we've said you talk to these amazing bands, but you do also do work just writing articles in general. I believe I saw one about a guitar and stuff like that. What other sort of things do you write about?
Mostly just about, I do anything about music. Basically, I write about, I can write about an artist. I can write about an album, specific album. Just anything to do with music that relates, from an interview, I put together a story, So yeah, as long as it's music oriented, I love writing about it. So, appreciate them of older albums, like I've been doing a column for Goldmine magazine every month. It's called In Search of Vinyl Gold, where I write about an overlooked album and discuss it, and mention why people should check it out again, that sort of stuff. I love magazines like Mojo. That's one of my favorite magazines. The English way of writing stories is fantastic. So I that's what I do. I just write stories and So I do. It's just anything to do with music, really.
The magazine industry has sort of taken a massive hit in regards to the fact that you can now just get it on your phone. So like obviously magazines have started to disappear, especially in the UK, because people just access it via Apple or whatever. Everything's now handheld. Does that ever worry you, or would you just move straight to digital rather than write for mags?
It does worry me because I'm old school. I can't read something on the computer. I love to have it in my hand. I'm old school, right? But yeah, it has. A lot of magazines have now. That's why they got an online site, so you can have a digital version and a physical version. But look, a lot of my stuff, what gets published in print later on comes out in the digital version, that's just the way of the world, really. Some stuff like the Goldmine column I do, that's purely online, so you can read it straight away. And I think that the big thing about publishing physical and publishing digital is, with digital, it's instant. Right, so if I publish an article, say now, it's online now. But if I go to a magazine, it's going to take 3 months before it hits the newsstand, sort of thing. So, and that's why it's so important that if you write an article like that it's still relevant in 3 months' time. So it's a fine line you got to sort of walk between digital and physical. But it's just the way of the world. It's a shame because some great. I just loved in the old days where you just go to a news agent, and buy your magazines, go and sit down and read them. Now you got to literally on your phone, I can't write really on the phone. I don't know how people can do this, but I still need the old school computer to actually write. But my friends, I've seen people just go on the phone and go, how do you do that? If I had to write an article on the phone, it will take me probably 2 months to write a simple article that can take me 10 minutes on the computer.
Could be worse. You could be like typewriter. Come on, I can't even do computer yet. Typewriter. Yeah. Pen and paper. But it's amazing looking at all the stuff you've done in the world of journalism, the people you spoke to, and all that. Do you have any particular favourite memories from that world? Any days you're just like, God, that was a good day?
Look, Sir George Martin, the fifth Beatle, who passed away a few years ago. Probably one of the highlights of my career because that was purely and truly a true legend of rock music. The Beatles. How close can you get to the Beatles than Sir George Martin? And just wonderful to sort of have the chance to actually meet him and spend time with him. It was about half an hour in his hotel room, and I met Lady Martin. It was just absolutely fantastic talking about John Lennon, the Beatles, Jeff Beck, who by the way was his favourite guitar player. Jeff Beck, is amazing. So. And Lemmy from Motorhead. How can I say? Lemmy from Motorhead, purely and truly, again, one of the real rock stars of our time. Intelligent, witty, didn't suffer fools gladly, really, really nice guy. And I was just so honoured that when he offered me to sort of, spend time with him, and, just wonderful time. I mean, when I first interviewed him, he put me through my paces because Lenny he didn't like journalists who were lazy or asked stupid questions. So I made sure that I asked him engaging questions, and he really, really loved it. And when he said to me at the end of the interview, Joe, that was one of the best interviews I've done. You're coming backstage. Make sure you're there in 6 months. I want to see you. And I was. And to be invited by Lenny. So the whole story's in my book, by the way, about Motorhead. So, so it's fantastic.
That is incredible. Soon as you've mentioned it, let's bring it up. You've obviously got your own autobiography, Backstage Pass, the Grit and the Glamour. What made you want to put your stories and your life out there for the world to read?
Over the years, everyone said to me, you must have a lot of stories about all these people that you met and, you played with. And I go, yeah. And they used to say to me, why don't you write a book? I go, no, I don't think so. It'll take forever. But, when the pandemic happened, I thought, now's the time to do it. Now, the reason I could write the book first is I've kept diaries for the last 30 years, detailed diaries. So everybody I've met, every gig I've played, it's detailed in my diary. So that way I can remember things because I've got it written down. And then obviously the stuff that I've forgotten, it helped me to refresh my memory. So that's the reason I can do it, because half the time I wouldn't even remember what I've done yesterday. So thank God I had those diaries. There's enough material there for 3 books.
Oh my days.
So the first book is what's out. It's called Backstage Pass, the Grit and the Glamour. Like I said, stories about, hanging out with Motorhead, Brian May from Queen, Sir George Martin, Disturbed. There's a lot of metal guys in there, a lot of pop guys, a lot of guitar guys, a lot of classic guys like Status Quo, and a lot of guys like a band called Hinder, who are, how can I say? There's a few little, if you're after sex, drugs, rock and roll, you're not going to get that with this book, but you are going to get stuff about what it's really like to be backstage. What they're really like is just normal human beings. You might have a bit of a touch of, some that sort of stuff there. Like Hinder touch a bit about some of their revolting backstage stuff they used to do, which is quite funny at times, when you read it. So, I didn't want to go down that whole sort of sex, drugs, rock and roll thing, because look, there's so many books about that, and it gets boring after a while. I want to show a side that people don't really see if they're artists, and everyone's really enjoyed the book. They're saying it's fantastic. We didn't know this about Lemmy, or we didn't know this about so and so, which is great. So, and it's a respectful thing too, by the way. So.
That's incredible. I think Jamie would love that. That's yours.
I was going to say, yeah. I was when I was doing the research, I was like, I'm going to order a copy of this.
Go on, Amazon. Get it on Amazon.
But I was going to ask, like, having such a career doing so many wonderful, how the hell do you remember it all? But as you said, detailed journals, that is great. I love that, because I always wonder that when people write autobiographies.
Yeah, diary is important because like I read I'm sure you read like The Dirt by Motley Crue many years ago, right? And Nikki Sixx's diaries, the Heron Diaries, whatever. Now, a lot of times you read that and you go, now, wait a minute. If you've supposedly died 3 times and come back, right? And at that time, you can't remember, because I've read interviews from that period, you can't remember what happened. But then 30 years later, you remember in detail what happened. How can that be so? So, and at that time, he says he's never kept diaries. So, I go, but that's all myth making, because look, half the time, a lot of stories are exaggerated in order to engage you as a reader. I mean, I'm not saying it's not totally true, but a lot of times exaggerated. I mean, I know Tom Werman, the producer of Girls, 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 Theatre of Pain, and what's the other one? The other album they brought out, and he told me that a lot of stuff that Nikki Sixx talks about in regards to like the cult symbolism and that sort of stuff, it's all bullshit. It's all like myth making. It's just putting out there so people can go, wow, Motley Crue, they're into this stuff. That's cool. Let's get into it. He says they were really focused on making that record as successful as possible. So, which is why they got Tom Werman, because he was the guy to go to have a successful album that was on radio. And that tells you everything. Same as Twisted Sister. he made them, radio friendly. So all these bands that used to go to Tom Werman wanted to go to him because they want to become successful. And then they say, oh, we were into this sort of, drug-addled period where we didn't know what we were doing and blah, blah, blah. It's all myth-making. I mean, it's rock and roll. I mean, rock and roll without myths, what is it? you need your myth-making, yeah?
I suppose Nicky Six as well. He probably didn't like. I don't want people to think I've gone off from a gig and I've gone into my hotel room and I'm sitting down and written what I've done today. It's like I went out and did lots of drugs off hookers' backs.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
One thing as well. I was reading the reviews on Amazon for the book, and one thing that really stood out to me, and I had to mention it. Someone made reference to a guitar pick collection.
Guitar pick collection. Hang on. In regards to what? I haven't seen that comment. The comment which
it was just on one of the Amazon. It was like he wanted to learn more about your guitar pick collection.
Oh, well, I did bring out guitar picks, signature guitar picks. I every tour I ever did, I had a specific guitar pick, which is like what most bands do anyway, just as merch sort of thing. So I've still got some of the leftovers from each tour. But yeah, I haven't seen that comment, so I've got to check that comment out. Is that on Amazon?
Yeah, it was on Amazon.
Okay. I know, look, I've got some diehard fans. I know that. I mean, there's a guy in America who has got everything I've ever put out or done, and and there's some stuff I go, I didn't even know I did that. He's got one of the red T-shirts I brought out for the tour. He's got a cassette release that I brought out. It was a limited edition, hand numbered. He's got. But yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, really, really nice to see diehard fans who know more about you than you do yourself.
Just going back to the music quickly. Obviously, you've got sorry, my brain is completely gone. The Lone Runner. That obviously a brand new album is completely electro instrumental sort of thing. But then you've got some EPs and some records where obviously they're full band, they're singing, etc. Why have you gone for the contrast of two different varieties of music? I guess.
That's just I love, as a musician, I love exploring different styles, and I suppose with the pandemic, not being able to go anywhere, I just felt like that sort of style of music was much more sort of ambient and sort of exploration, So I was in my studio. I loved tinkling around. I just thought, you know what? I just came up with some riffs. I go, oh, this is good. I just feel this is the sort of mood I feel. And I believe in the power of music to heal and to inspire and to, just make you feel good. And I want my music to do the same thing. So I thought, you know what? I'll put together an album. So, put the album together. A label in Australia signed me up to it, and released it was only about a month ago, and it charted on the ARIA charts. So I've got it debuted at number 4 on the ARIA Jazz and Blues charts, and in that particular week, it outsold Fleetwood Mac and Michael Bublé on the chart. I couldn't believe it.
Absolute win.
So, yeah. So you can hear it it's obviously on Spotify too, but the CD is done really well, and it stayed in the top 10 for 3 weeks in Australia.
Oh, congratulations, man! That's
phenomenal.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. What's the feedback like from it with your fans? Because obviously they're used to hearing you a certain way, and now you're like, here's something completely different.
Yeah, they say it's really good sort of music they put when they're working away or in their car or they're trying to relax and chill out a bit. It's really good. It's a nice contrast to what I do because, like you said earlier, Slave to Fingers. That's very much in a style of Joe Satriani, sort of, Gary Moore and sort of rocky, hard rock stuff. So if you love sort of that high energy guitar, air guitar, you'll listen to that. But when you want to chill out a bit more, you listen to Lone Runner. So, there's that contrast to it.
That's amazing. I think it's a genius move, actually, because I know a lot of artists and a lot of bands tend to veer off and go a different way. And a lot of fans are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Because obviously they're trying to keep, not relevant's the wrong word, but they're obviously experimenting in different areas to stay fresh. And for people to be like, "Oh, I quite like this sound. It's quite nice. You've got some of the heavy stuff over here." And Bring Me the Horizon are a perfect example. They were obviously heavy, as hard as fuck, and then they went R&B-ish almost. And it's they're so different. And then their new singles are more electronic-y with breakdown. Yeah. It's so great to be so eclectic and have so much different stuff for, whatever mood you're in, I guess.
Absolutely. I get that. And so you're right. Classic examples Bring Me the Horizon. I mean, I love that collaboration I did with Ed Sheeran. That is absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, if you weren't a fan of that band, you'll be a fan of that band after you hear that. I mean, that's brilliant. I love bands who do that, like you said, who aren't afraid to sort of go against the trends and just explore stuff. I've never been about trend. I've been, like I said earlier, it's about I love my influences. I'm proud of my influences. I don't care if someone says, "Oh, that's a bit old school." I don't care because you know what, fans. There are fans out there who love old school, and I play for the stuff that I like. That hopefully there's an audience out there who like it too. So, but yeah, and then I'm not afraid to experiment because yeah, as an artist, you don't want to be. You get bored after the same. I mean, I couldn't go back now and do another Slave the Fingers. I'm beyond that. That was a period in time that I really enjoyed. I'm proud of it. Now I've moved into different areas and I just want to just keep progressing and growing as an artist.
I've always said one of the most inspirational bands in this, if not the most inspirational band on this planet, the Beatles. Every album sounded different. Like, yeah. They tried something different and new every album. If the Beatles can do it, anyone can bloody do it.
Absolutely. I mean, you listen to the first album to the last album. It's a completely different band. So and that is right. They explored. They didn't stay. I mean, if they stayed in how they were in the first album, they wouldn't have lasted as long as they did, or be as influential. So, and that's like anything. It's like any artist. If you notice the artists that sort of disappear after a while, the ones who sort of haven't progressed, they're trying to sort of repeat a formula, which there is no formula, I mean, it's very rare. I mean, AC/DC probably very rare because they've kept the same formula. But you know what? Bloody brilliant band, absolutely. I mean, I wish we could write riffs as hard and as good and songs as AC/DC, but I mean, that's a rare occasion that, they've never steered away from the formula. It's AC/DC, but again, it's the sound. Everybody's trying to imitate that sound. You listen to all the metal bands that came after. They all try to imitate that AC/DC sound, but no one ever got close to it. Maybe Crocus, but again, they're a distinctive band, AC/DC. So, yeah.
No, it's like I get a lot of stick for being such a huge Kiss fan. And everyone's like, "Oh, bloody, you always made for love and you. It's a disco record." I'm like, yeah, but you know what? They tried it, and it's probably the biggest selling song they ever did. So,
absolutely right. That is the biggest selling album. That's right. I loved it. I mean, that album Dynasty is. I don't care. People make fun of it and say, "Oh, they'll disco." You know what? That is a bloody brilliant. There's some great tracks on that. Was a 2000 Man on that one. Sure Knows Something. Dirty Living. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Great record. And obviously, I know I'm going to nerd out Kiss slightly, but I know Unmasked was huge in Australia as well, especially Shandy. It was a massive song in Australia.
Absolutely. Shandy was, and when I heard that, it was like a pop rock song, absolutely made for radio, and I loved it, I know over the years the band sort of try to distance themselves away from it, but you can't, because that's part of who you are. And I actually, those two albums I prefer over a lot of the other stuff, I mean, obviously the classic stuff, who can't deny that. The 80s stuff wasn't too bad, I think when they brought out what was it? The one that had Domino on it.
Revenge.
Yes, Revenge. I love that one too. So, but look, I reckon Dynasty is a bloody great album. And I remember the big poster that came with it. Open up the vinyl, gigantic big poster of Kiss.
See, it's just great. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah. Okay, don't apologise.
I don't get to nerd out about Kiss very often. But I was looking at like some of the bands you've toured with, like supported, Bay City Rollers, The Animals, and obviously we're just talking about Kiss. You toured with Peter Criss as well.
Yeah, Peter Criss did a Kiss convention in Australia about 6 years ago, and he was headlining. So I was one of the support acts. It was about like 6-7 support acts. It was a whole day thing. So absolutely fantastic. And they had Bruce Kulick out at the same time. So, to see my name when they on the poster it said Peter Criss and then had, the support bangs and my name's up there, Joe Matera, and thinking, wow, it's fantastic. So, look, Kiss fans are great. I mean, I played a couple of Kiss covers just in my own style, which was, it was okay, because you really can't do Kiss without, with a proper band. But, they were happy with it. The Kiss fans were supportive. I had a couple of fans who had never heard of me before who became fans of mine, through that, which is really cool. Absolutely great, and I think that was the last tour he did. He's going to retire, but I think he may be doing another show. I'm not sure, but that's probably one of his last ever live performances, which is quite an honour to be on that same bill with him.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Did you get a chance to meet Peter?
No, he sort of kept to himself. That's the only hard thing about it is I wish I got to meet him. A lot of times with these support acts, you don't sort of get to meet the headlining act at all. I mean, I've met most of the ones I've played with, except for Peter Criss, and I think there was another one. But most of them are pretty good. I mean, the Animals are fantastic. I spent time with the Animals, you know. The Backstage role is fantastic. I spent time backstage with them, you know, and absolutely, yeah, just really, really great times.
I imagine touring with some of these bands, like you must learn so much as well, just from watching.
Yeah. You do. You learn a lot about stagecraft, but you also learn a lot about the audiences, you know. I mean, the Basically Rollers was really fascinating because every night it was a sold-out show, 1,000 women, basically, who were reliving their teenage years and 70s. It's incredible. And to come out in front and just play your music, you know, because basically I was relatively not known to them, you know, I'm just a support act. But then to actually hear them, you know, applause and you know, encore in, I want you to encore, which you'd never encore as a support act. And and just, you know, becoming fans of your music, you know, and just absolutely wonderful, you know. I mean, they were really supportive. I was really, really lucky to sort of play to some really appreciative crowds. I mean, because they were really diehard Basically Roller fans, you know, and to win them over was fantastic. And I think as a support act, that's really rewarding because it's about going to play to an audience you don't know, who don't know who you are, you know, maybe for a few people, and to win them over with your own music is an achievement, is satisfaction.
I bet it's also amazing when fans sing back at you when you're on tours, when you're playing your songs and they're singing your lyrics right back at you. Must be an unbelievable feeling.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's happened a couple of times. You know, a few fans have, you know, followed my career all along the years, and who know certain song sort of, you know, choruses, and I'll start singing them. It's really rewarding. Obviously, you know, I love to hear a whole room of 1,000 people sing it, but just to hear some of those fans sing is fantastic.
Have you missed touring? Obviously, with the pandemic and stuff.
I love touring. Yeah, I have missed touring, especially Europe. I love Europe, and I miss touring because it's great. I mean, it's not easy work. It's really hard work, but it's more about going on stage and playing for audiences that, you know, really appreciate who you are and your music. So yeah, hopefully, you know, things settle down a bit more, and, you know, maybe next year I may return to Europe again. But we'll see. It's like I said, it's more about each day, take it as it comes.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you back there, Joe. It'd be great to have you back over here in the UK.
And I'll come over to England and meet you guys personally.
Yes. Yes, that'd be great.
So before we start bringing this to an end here, when I was doing my research, I kept hearing names of loads of Australian rock bands that I've never heard of. And I was getting this feeling because, like they say about Canada, like Canada has this untapped music that are some of the greatest bands on the planet, but no one's ever heard of them outside of Canada. And I'm starting to get this feeling that it was the same in Australia. So what's some great Australian rock bands that you can recommend people checking out?
Well, probably some of the classic ones that, you know, especially when I go to Germany. I mean, they seem to have a really good knowledge of Australian bands, and, you know, bands like Rose Tattoo. They are superstars in Germany. They're bigger in Germany than they are in Australia. I mean, you know, they were big in their heyday in the late 70s, early 80s, but in Germany, they're massive. Some classic Australian bands. You know, there was obviously, you know, In Excess. Mental's Anything was another one that was big. Men at Work was another one that were, you know, big overseas. It's really hard because I don't really hang around with much of the music scene in Australia. I'm much more focused on Europe. I know more about European bands than I do about Australian bands. I mean, we've got some great musicians here, don't get me wrong, absolutely. But it's interesting because when I go overseas, a lot of times I'll run into an Australian band and I'll go, "You're Australian?" They go, "Yeah." "Where are you from?" "Melbourne." "Oh, so am I." And I go, "I didn't even hear about you," you know. So it's really weird. You get to sort of find out about your own bands overseas.
A bit like, well, that guy, we're from the same city. They don't even know who we are.
Yeah. You live down the street, do you? Well, I've never seen you. It's funny. It's absolutely, it's incredible.
That's nuts as well. That is so.
I'll tell you a story. I was in Hamburg one day, and I was sitting down having my lunch, and I pulled out my credit card and to pay for my meal, and I sat down, and then this guy across to me looked at me, came across, and he goes, "You Australian?" And I'm going, "Yeah." "Are you?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, how'd you know I was Australian? He goes, I saw your credit card. It was an Australian credit card. I recognised it. And I said, oh, where are you from? He says, Melbourne. I said, so am I. Couldn't believe it. Like, out of all the places in the world, Hamburg, like.
I mean, and that's not exactly close either. That's insane.
That's right. Yeah.
I just love the fact he recognised the credit card of all things to pick up.
I know. I was a bit worried thinking he reckoned, is he looking out for credit cards here, is he?
Oh, it's my neighbour.
That's right, yeah. My neighbour. Okay.
So, Joe, finally for myself before I hand over to my colleague here, if people are listening to this and they're like, I like the sound of this Joe, I like the cut of his jib, as they say. What's one or two songs from your back catalogue that you might recommend people going to check out, just to get a feel of what you are and the sort of music you put out?
Okay, well, definitely Fallen Angel from my back catalogue from 2012. And another two more would be Louder Than Words, especially if they watch the video, they'll get the idea. That's from about 2015. And a recent one I did with Don Powell from Slade. He plays drums on it. It's called Inside Looking Out. It's from last year, and absolutely fantastic guy. I've had some great musicians play with me. I've even got Jan Schaffer from the guitar player from ABBA. He plays on one of my tracks called Take a Look. As you know, Jan's the number one session guitarist in Sweden, and he actually outsold ABBA in 1973. His debut album outsold ABBA's debut album. And so I met him when I toured Stockholm, and we got along really well. He loved my music. I loved his music, and he offered to play on one of my tracks. And so he plays on that track called Take a Look. But Don Powell, I've known for quite a few years from Slade. Absolutely one of the loudest drummers I've ever worked with. I mean, yeah, but check it. He's on the video, so people want to check out the track. It's called Inside Looking Out. You'll see Don playing drums in the video to my track.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Mr. Stevens, do you? Oh, sorry, Cam.
I do actually, Jamie. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know if there's a time lag between me and you. I'm not sure what's going on there. Joe, two questions. Firstly, what's next for you now? What that you can talk about? Obviously, what's coming up?
What am I coming up? Okay, more writing. Obviously, in the middle of my second book, but that still might take a couple of years before that comes out because it is a slow process. I've got new music coming out still. I've recorded a few new tracks which will come out later in the year. But at the moment, it's basically just promoting the Lone Runner. My reissue, by the way, reissues have just come out a week ago. They're called Slave to Fingers and Creature of Habits. So the first two albums have been reissued by a US label called Renaissance Records. 2 for 1, which means 2 albums on one CD. Absolutely fantastic reissue with new artworks and bonus tracks. And so check that out online. You can buy the CD or on Spotify. Lone Runner, as again, you can buy it on CD or check on Spotify. And my book, obviously, still promote my book because it's still relevant. Backstage Pass, the Grit and the Glamour. You can get it at any Amazon store in your country. So if it's in the UK, it'll be amazon.co.uk, or in America, it'll be .com. So yeah, check it out, and everybody can sort of. I'm always open to. I'm easily I love interacting with fans or anybody who wants has got a question. So they can find me on social media, Facebook, easy. Send me friend request, and my website joematera.com, and basically you can find anything you want there.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully everybody goes and checks that out. Make sure you do. Everyone, listen to this right now.
That's right.
Finally, Joe, when you first started out, obviously playing guitar, etc., growing up in school and everything else, did you ever think that this is where you would be today with this unbelievable career you've had so far?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would never have thought. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I had an album which had it was like the year's top tracks. Those compilation albums they bring out every year, and that had on that album it had Basie Rollers, Steve Harley, Pilot, Slade, all these bands. Now, 95% of those bands listed on that album, I've played with them, I've worked with them, I know them. And like, who would have thought as a 10-year-old that would ever happen? No way. I mean, you cannot say that you knew. I would have never known. So it's amazing what life can throw you. I mean, you just follow your. Like I said at the start, it's important to be who you are. Don't be afraid to follow your own path. It's not an easy path. I mean, it's been a hard slog going up doing your own thing. But in the end, you'll find your, as I say, you'll find your tribe. And when you find your tribe, they're there for you. And and like yourselves, I really appreciate your interest in me. It's been such a pleasure talking to you guys. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And I enjoy talking to people who have passion for what they do. And you got a great channel there, both Tom and Jamie. And thank you for having me. And I really appreciate it, mate. And anytime, just give me another buzz, and we'll love to chat down in the future.
Oh, Joe,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That means the world. Seriously, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to yourself. Thank you so much for reaching out and for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed the chat, and you've had some great questions. And it's just been nice, laid back. It's nice to do something that's sort of laid back, and fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Look, what I'm going to do is anybody who sees this and they want to contact me and they mention that they heard me on your show, right? I'll send them a free MP3 for somebody. If they just, whatever, mention that and say, "I'll pick one of my songs you like. I'll send you an MP3 for free." How's that?
That's
You're an
incredible.
absolute hero. I love that.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Joe. That's amazing.
Oh, right. That's good.
No, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. This has been absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. And look, all the best of your channel. I love what you do. And
Joe, my friend, thank you so much again. Have an absolutely amazing Saturday.
Thank you.
Enjoy
You
it.
too.
Look
And
after yourself.
Yeah, and I hope it's what 1:30 in the morning there.
Yes.
Is it? Oh God, yeah.
1, yeah.
So you have yourself a great Saturday too, and we'll stay in touch.
Yes,
Will
we
do,
definitely will. We definitely will. Look after yourself, all right?
No worries. You take
See
care.
you
Thanks
soon,
a lot,
Joe.
mate.
Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a fantastic conversation. I loved this one. So good.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed. And hopefully you all of you guys enjoyed listening to it as much as we did recording it. And Joe, thank you so much for taking the time, my friend. Greatly appreciated. We'll catch up soon. And hopefully you enjoy what we've delivered.
Absolutely.